Hello there friends, it's Ashley here from the Loopy Lamb and theloopylamb.com, and thanks so much for stopping by the channel today. It is week 10 of our 2023 Amigurumi Advent Calendar Crochet Along, and as the warm weather arrives, it is time to get our little dolls ready for the beach. We are getting them ready and filling out their wardrobe, because what wardrobe is complete without a bathing suit? So our little guys are going to be getting these cute little bathing suits, and I'm going to be walking you through step by step how to crochet a doll's bathing suit. Now this is all made in one piece, and over on my blog, theloopylamb.com, on the written version of the pattern, which is available for free on my blog, you can find a list of tips on how you can add or customize your bathing suit for the little one that you plan to give it to. So let's hop on into what materials we're going to need in order to follow along with today's tutorial. To follow along with today's tutorial, you'll need the following materials. You'll need worsted weight yarn in 2 colors of your preference. Today I'm using the We Crochet Bravo worsted weight line in the colors Denim and Dove Heather. You'll need a 3.5mm or E crochet hook, or whatever size hook that you've been using to match the gauge given in all the crochet along patterns so far. If you need that information, or you're looking for the doll pattern to go with these shorts, then you can find those available at theloopylamb.com, and I've linked to the written version of this free pattern in the description box below. You'll need a 9mm button, scissors, a tapestry or yarn needle, 2 stitch markers, a little bit of white embroidery thread, or you can use a scrap of white yarn if you don't have the embroidery thread handy, and a sewing needle and sewing thread in a color that would match the yarn that you're going to use. So let me clear my workspace here, and we'll hop into crocheting our swim shorts for our Amigurumi doll. So to start our swim trunks for our doll, we're going to be using one of our 2 colors. For me, I've picked the Dove Heather, which is the lighter of the 2 colors, and we'll need our crochet hook. We start by creating a slip knot, and you can do that by just holding the yarn tail across your palm like so, wrapping around your fingers from back to front and front to back, and then crossing the yarn over itself to create an X. Flip your hand over, pin it down with your ring finger, and then put your crochet hook under the first strand, over the second, and then pull that second strand out under the first, and then pull it all off and onto your fingers. Then pull your yarn tail and tighten that slip knot up to your hook, and you're ready to start crocheting. So our shorts are worked from the bottom up, which means that we're going to start our legs first. So to create pant-like one, we're going to start by creating a chain of 20. To create a chain, we're going to yarn over hook and pull that yarn over through the loop on our hook to chain 1. Then we're going to do this over and over again until we have 20 chains. So again, yarn over, pull through the loop, there's 2, yarn over, pull through the loop, there's 3. We're just going to keep on going until we have 20. So I have my 20 chains, and now we're going to join our last chain to our first chain to form a ring. So what I like to do is I like to turn my chain so I can see those V's that are facing me, and I'm going to put my finger in the middle of the chain and fold it in half. Then this could be a little tricky at first, so I'm going to hold it with both fingers here, fold it in half. So that way I do not twist my chain in any way. I'm just folding it in half and then inserting my hook into that first chain. Now you can see that my loop over here, my working loop, has gotten a little big there. That's not a big deal because I can just pull my yarn and tighten that up. And now I know that I am in that chain and I do not have a twist in my chain, so I can continue on. So now that I've inserted my hook into that first chain, I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, and then I'm going to pull that loop that I just pulled up through the loop on my hook to create that slip stitch. So now you've got your ring formed. Now at this point, I like to recommend that you bring in a stitch marker and place it in the last stitch or last chain that you created there, not the slip stitch, because it will help you keep track of the last stitch. So that way you don't actually pick up or even drop any stitches, because I do find that sometimes that slip stitch causes some confusion and for people to pick up and extra stitches or even lose them. So I always recommend, if you've got your stitch marker handy, place that in the last chain you created there. So now that we have our slip stitch created, we're going to yarn over, hook, and chain up 1, right? And we need that to create the height needed for our first stitch. And our first stitch is a single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook back into that first chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops on your hook. That's your first single crochet completed. Now we're going to insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over, hook, and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook. Then you're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. Now we're going to be working 1 single crochet into each chain around. So I'll show you how to do this one more time. We're going to insert our hook into the next chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. There's 2 loops on your hook. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. And that's your third single crochet completed. So at this point, we're just going to continue to work 1 single crochet stitch into each chain around. Now, if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each chain, I'll meet you back here at the end of the row to show you how we're going to finish it off. And when you get to the end of the row, make sure that you're counting your stitches to make sure that you have those 20 single crochets. So I'll be back in just a jiffy. So I'm back and I'm at the end of the round. I have 20 single crochets worked around, and I'm ready to join my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook under both loops of that first stitch that we created. All right, I'll do that again, inserting my hook in under both loops of the first stitch we created. Then we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So at this point, you should have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to pull that loop you just pulled up through the loop on your hook to create your slip stitch. Now again, I'm going to put that stitch marker in my first stitch of the round this time, because I want to make sure I'm not picking up or losing any stitches. And now we're ready to move on to round 2. For round 2, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1, and then we're going to turn our work. So now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So into that first stitch, we're going to work 1 single crochet, and then we're just working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So if you'd like to pause your video and do 1 single crochet into each stitch, I'll meet you at the end of the round and show you what we'll be doing at the end of this round. So I'm back and I just finished my last stitch of round 2, and I have 20 single crochets around my piece. To finish off this round, I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of the round, yarn over and pull up a loop. And then I'm going to pull that loop through the loop on my hook to create a slip knot. Then I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. So for rounds 3 and 4, we're going to repeat what we just did for round 2. We're going to single crochet once into each stitch around, and then we'll join our last stitch to our first stitch at the end of the round. So if you'd like to pause your video and do rounds 3 and 4 in the exact same manner we just did round 2, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 4 and show you what we'll be doing next. So I'm back and I just finished my last stitch of round 4 and I've done my slip stitch. So at the end of round 4, instead of chaining up 1 and continuing on like we were doing before, we're just going to cut our yarn and pull the yarn all the way through to finish off. Then we're ready to start with the second leg. For the second leg, we're going to repeat the instructions we just did for pant leg 1. So pause the video and rewind it back to the beginning there to do the second pant leg, but when you get to the end of round 4 for the second pant leg, do not cut your yarn or finish off. You're going to meet me back here, and we're going to join our 2 legs together in order to create the rest of our shorts. So let me finish this off and do my second leg, and I'll be right back and show you what we're doing next. All right, so I'm back. I have my 2 pant legs here. I have pant leg here still attached to my working yarn here. This is pant leg 2. And we're going to start to join our legs after completing round 4 of the leg, pant leg 2. So we're going to yarn over and pull up a loop to chain 1. And we're going to do that again, yarn over and pull through to chain 2. And then we're going to turn. We're going to single crochet into the last stitch of round 4 on our pant leg 1. So I can tell where my last stitch is here because I have my slip stitch, and I did my slip stitch last. So we're going here into this last single crochet. So we're going to insert our hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through 2. All right, so let me pull that apart here so you can see what we've done here. It's a little tricky to keep it visible while actually doing it here on the camera, so I do apologize. I hope that was easy for you to see. But what we have here is we have our chain 2, we've turned, and now we're working into the pant leg 1. We've got 1 single crochet here in the last stitch of pant leg 1. So then we're going to single crochet all the way around this leg. But before we do that, I want to place a stitch marker in, the second chain that we created. And we're going to do that now because it can be a little tricky to get later. So I'm just going to take my stitch marker, I'm going to find my second chain. So here's my first one, here's my second, and I'm just going to place a stitch marker there in the chain 2. Now I'm going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around the top of pant leg 1. So insert into the next stitch and single crochet. And again, we're just working 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around pant leg 1. All right, so I have 1 stitch in every 1 single crochet in each stitch around leg 1. So that means you should have 20 single crochets you've just done around the top of leg 1. So now we're back to that join, and you can see that we've got that stitch marker there. I'm just going to briefly move that out of the way, and I'm going to place 1 single crochet into each of those chains. Now at this point, the chains are kind of upside down to me. So I personally like to take my hook and use the tip of the hook here to pick up that loop that I want to crochet into. A little tricky there. So there we go. I used the tip of my hook to pick up the loops, and then I'm going to single crochet once into that chain. I'm picking up my stitch marker here, and I'm going to place it on the other side of that chain, back where it was, so that way when I get to the other side of the piece, I know where that second chain is located. Now I'm going to do the same thing with the next chain. Using the tip of my hook, I'm going in to pick up that chain, and then I'm going to single crochet. All right. Now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the stitches around the top of pant leg 2. So when you're looking at this, I want you to make sure that you take a look and you identify where the slip stitch is. Right here where my thumb is touching the tip of my thumb, that's my slip stitch. I don't want a single crochet there. I want to skip the slip stitch and work into the last single crochet here. So I'm going to single crochet once, and then I'm just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. All right, so I'm just going to remove my hands here so you can see what your piece should look like. Get our yarn tails out of there. So at this point, this is what your piece should look like. We've got the 2 pant legs and they are joined in the middle. We have our 20 single crochets on the top of each pant leg, and so far 2 single crochets on the one side of the chain. So now we're on the other side. You can see that stitch marker is now in front of us again. So what we're going to do is we're going to work 1 single crochet into that first chain that we created. So it can be a little tricky to see at this point, but thankfully we placed that stitch marker. So if we know that this is where the stitch marker is and that's in the second chain, we're just going to find the little tiny gap that's directly next to that stitch marker, and we're going to single crochet. All right, that's our chain 1. Now we're going to join this stitch to the marked chain here with a slip stitch to end our round. So insert into the chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then pull that loop through the loop on your hook, and you're done the round. Now at this point, I highly recommend that you take a moment and count all of your stitches. So what you're going to do is you're going to count all of the V's around. You should have 44 stitches, and the chain 1 of the first 2 chains counts as a stitch. So we want to make sure that we're counting our chains as well. Okay, so take a moment. You should have the 44 stitches. All right, so now that we have done this part here, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And we are ready to start with round 6 of our shorts. So for round 6, we're just going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. So we're already accustomed to doing these single crochets. So we're just going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And when you get to the end and you see that chain 2 here, that counts as a stitch. So we want to make sure that we're placing our last stitch of this round in where the stitch marker is located, because that is our first stitch of our round moving forward. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you at the end of the round and show you what we're going to be doing before we move on to round 7. So I'm back. I'm at the end of round 6, and I've got my 1 single crochet into each stitch around completed. I'm going to move that stitch marker out of the way here because I'm going to join my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch. And now I'm going to take that stitch marker and place that into the first stitch of the round. Again, this is just for me to make sure that I don't pick up or lose any stitches. So now we're ready to move on to row 7, and we're going to start row 7 with a yarn over and chain up 1. Then we're going to turn our work, and we're going to start our row with a single crochet decrease. So a single crochet decrease is where we're going to eliminate 1 of the stitches in our row here, and it's worked over 2 stitches. So we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch here, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You should have 2 loops on your hook now. Then we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over, and pull up a loop. You should have 3 loops on your hook now. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on our hook. And that's your decrease completed. And now we've just turned 2 stitches into 1. So now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining 42 stitches around. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into the remaining stitches of the round, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round to show you how we're moving on. All right, so we are at the end of round 7, and I have 43 stitches in my rounds, and I'm going to join my last stitch to my first stitch here with a slip stitch again. Again, I'm going to place that stitch marker into the first stitch of the round, and I'm ready to move on to round 8. So I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. And round 8 is simple. We're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. We should have no changes in stitch count. We should still have 43 stitches. And when we're done our 43 stitches, we're going to join our last stitch to our first stitch with a slip stitch, as we've been doing in previous rounds here. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around and then join with a slip stitch at the end, I'll meet you back here at the end of the round and show you how to move on to round 9. So I'm back. I just finished my last stitch of round 8. I've got my 43 stitches and I've joined my last stitch to my first stitch with a slip stitch. And I'd say I'm ready to move on to round 9. So to move on to round 9, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. You can start to see that these are actually looking like shorts now. So for round 9, we're going to start with 1 single crochet into each of the first 41 stitches. So if you don't want to count, because who does, we're going to single crochet into all of the stitches but the last 2. So single crochet around and leave the last 2 stitches unworked, because I'm going to show you what we're going to do when we get to those last 2 stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and single crochet around, remember to leave those last 2 stitches of the round unworked, and I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you what we're going to do with those last 2 stitches. All right, so I am done. I have my 41 single crochets and I have 2 stitches left in this round to be worked. And what we're going to be doing in those last 2 stitches is we're going to do a decrease. So yes, we're bringing back that decrease we learned earlier. And so we're going to insert our hook into that first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, 2 loops on our hook. Then we're going to yarn over, then we're just going to insert our hook into the next stitch. Then we'll yarn over and pull up a loop. So we should have 3 loops on our hook at this point. Then we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops, eliminating one of those stitches and finishing our round. So at this point, at the end of round 9, we should have 42 single crochet stitches. Now we're going to join our last stitch to our first stitch with a slip stitch there, and we're ready to move on to round 10. So we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And before I forget, I'm moving up that stitch marker and marking my last stitch of my previous row there. So then we're going to place 1 single crochet into each stitch around for round 10. And when we get to the end of the round, we will be joining our last stitch to our first stitch with a slip stitch, as we've been doing in all of our previous rounds. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around and join your last stitch with that slip stitch join we've been doing, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 10 and show you how we're moving on in round 11. So I just finished my slip stitch join at the end of round 10. I have 42 single crochets and I'm ready to move on to round 11. So we're going to start round 11 by yarning over and chaining up 1 and turning our work. To start, we're going to do another single crochet decrease. So working into that first stitch, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then working into that second stitch, we're going to insert and yarn over and pull up a loop. We have 3 loops on our hook now, and we're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's our decrease completed. And now we're going to work 1 single crochet into each remaining stitch of this round. So you don't have to count, you just have to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. And when you get to the end of the round, you're going to join your last stitch to your first stitch with that slip stitch join we've been doing. At the end of this round, you should have 41 single crochet stitches. So if you'd like to pause your video and work the rest of your single crochet stitches and your slip stitch join, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 11 and show you how we're going to start round 12. So I'm here at the end of round 11 and I just joined my last stitch to my first stitch with my slip stitch, and I'm ready to move on to round 12. To start round 12, I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. For round 12, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, which we're very used to doing at this point. Nothing special about this round other than when we get to the end of the round. At the end of the round, we'll still have 41 stitches, but we're going to stop doing that slip stitch join. So we're not going to be joining the ends of our rounds at the end of this round. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back at the end of round 12 and we'll talk about why we're not going to be doing that join and showing you how to move on to round 13. So I'll meet you back here in just a moment. All right, so I just finished my last stitch of round 12, and as I said at the beginning of the round, we're not going to be joining our ends of our rows together anymore for the rest of this piece. And now the point of this is, if you're familiar with like Barbie clothes, for instance, you need to have an opening in the back in order to get the clothes on the doll. They're not as flexible. Even with an Amigurumi doll, we still need to have that little bit of an opening in the back, so that way it's easier also for the children to get it on the doll, even though the dolls are more flexible. So at this point, we're just going to be leaving an opening at the back. It's just a little slip because we're not joining our ends, and it's going to help make putting on these shorts easier. So now we're ready to move on to round 13. To do round 13, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn our work. And we're not going to need that stitch marker any longer, unless in this round you think it would be helpful to help you mark the previous row, so that way you don't work into that slip stitch. But at this point, I'm moving my stitch marker aside and will no longer be using it. So for round 13, we're going to start by working 1 single crochet into each of the first 39 stitches. So again, if you don't want to count your stitches, you can just single crochet around until there are 2 stitches left to be worked. So if you'd like to pause your video and come back to me when you've got all your single crochets completed and there are 2 stitches left to be worked, I'll meet you back here in just a moment to show you how we're going to finish off those last 2 stitches of the round. So we are back and we're at the end of round 13. I have 2 stitches left to be worked in this round, and we're going to finish this round off with a single crochet decrease. So again, inserting this stitch hook into that first stitch, pull up a loop, insert into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then you're going to yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook there, finishing your round. And at this point, you should have 40 stitches around. So now that we have our single crochet decrease done, we're going to finish off with this color. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut our yarn, leaving a yarn tail of at least 4 to 6 inches to weave in our ends. And then we're going to just yarn over, chain up 1, and pull that yarn all the way through our stitch so it's secure. And then we're ready to bring in our new color. So we're going to be attaching our new color to the first stitch, which is right here of round 13, with what's called a single crochet join or a standing single crochet. And I'll show you how to do that. We do have a full tutorial here on the channel on how to do a single crochet join. So if you need to see this a little slower, you can also check out that tutorial here as well. So using our new color, we're going to create another slip knot because we need to start this with a slip knot on our hook. So holding onto your yarn tail, you're going to wrap it around your fingers, cross it over, flip it over, and then pin it down. Then we're going to take our hook, go under the first strand, over the second, and then pull it all underneath and transfer all the yarn onto your hook. Pull your yarn tails and you're ready to rock. So now that we have our piece back, we're going to keep that slip knot on our hook and we're going to insert our hook into the first stitch of the round. So now that we've got our hook inserted, you can see I'm holding onto the tail here because it just helps to keep that slip knot from sliding around on me. So then I'm going to yarn over hook and pull up a loop. And then we have 2 loops on our hook, and then we're going to yarn over and pull through both loops. And that is our first single crochet completed. So now we are ready to continue on with round 14. And now we're going to single crochet into each stitch around. So if you'd like to pause your video and work 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 13 and show you how we're moving on to round 14. So now we're at the end of round 14 and we're ready to move on to round 15. For round 15, we're going to create our buttonhole that will help hold the shorts on. So to create our buttonhole, we're going to need to do a chain 6. So to do that, we're going to yarn over and chain up 1, yarn over and chain up 2, and we're going to continue until we have 6 chains. So now that I have my 6 chains, I'm ready to turn my work. And what we're going to do starting in this round is we're going to skip those 6 chains we just completed, and we're going to single crochet in the last stitch of the previous round. And so what this does, and I'll try to make it a little easier to see here, is that this creates a little loop here that we'll use later to secure our button onto when we put the shorts onto the doll. This will slide over the button and secure the shorts. So now to continue with round 15, we're going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So at the end of this round, you'll have your 40 single crochets and your chain 6 space for your buttonhole. So if you'd like to meet me at the end of round 15, I'll show you how we're moving on to round 16. So I just finished my last stitch of round 15 and I'm ready to move on to round 16. So I'm going to yarn over and chain up 1 and turn my work. And then I'm going to work 1 single crochet into each stitch around. When you get to the end of the round, you're not going to work into that chain 6 space. You're going to finish off in the last stitch of the round, leaving that chain space unworked. So if you just want to pause your video and do 1 single crochet into each stitch around, I'll meet you back here at the end of round 16 to show you how we're going to be finishing off our swim shorts. So I just finished my last stitch of round 16, and just as a reminder, we're stopping in that last stitch and we're leaving that chain space unworked. So we're going to cut our yarn now, leaving a tail of 4 to 6 inches. So you can weave the yarn tail in, and then I'm just going to chain up 1 and pull the yarn all the way through the loop to finish off. And then I will take my tapestry needle and weave in all of my yarn ends. Now, after my yarn ends, or you can do it now before you have woven them in, we're ready to add the detail to the front of the shorts. So it makes it look like it's got a cute little tie that ties the shorts together. And so we're going to need our embroidery thread as well as our tapestry needle to do this next part here. So we're going to cut a piece of embroidery thread that's at least 8 to 10 inches long. I usually go 10 inches just to be on the safe side because I'd rather have more than not enough. So now that we have our embroidery thread threaded onto our tapestry needle, we're ready to insert our needle into our fabric, but we want the right side of our fabric facing us. And then I'm just going to lay this flat on a surface so I can clearly see where the center line of my fabric is. So we want to start just off center on one of the sides, but the instructions say we want 3 stitches between our 2 ends of our tie. So I'm going to see this is the center stitch roughly here. So I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. So that means I want to start here in this stitch of round 15. So inserting our needle from back to front, I'm going to pull the one end of the one end of the embroidery thread through the shorts. Then I'm going to grab the other end of the embroidery thread and thread it onto the needle. And again, we're counting over 3 stitches. So we get 1, 2, and 3. So that means I'm coming from back to front through that 4th stitch here in the shorts. Again, we're in round 15 and we're going to pull that all the way through. So now I'm going to remove the needle, and because I just have this compulsion to do so, I'm going to even up the ends as much as possible. So what I'm doing is, it's hard to see because this workspace is so small, but I've just got the tapestry or the embroidery thread ends and I'm matching them up so they're even. So now I'm just going to tie a knot here in my thread, but don't pull it so tight that it actually cinches your shorts. Because it might not fit your doll then. You want to just kind of leave it relaxed and tie a knot here. Now we're going to tie a bow next, but I like to tie a knot first so that way I know it's not coming out of this fabric at all when I give it to my child. So now that I've got my knot done, I'm just going to tie a little bow. And if you'd like, you can also double knot that. And I'm just going to tie a little bow. Right now it's not very tidy, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that knot down and pull each of the ends until I have a tidier looking bow. And again, if you want, you can double knot that. And I'm happy with how that looks. And now that I've got my bow tidy enough, I'm just going to come in and cut both ends of the thread to create the little ends of my tie. So now that we are done creating our tie, we have one thing left to finish off our bathing suits trunks for our doll. And so we would weave in our ends, but then we have to add our button. So looking at the back of our shorts, we're going to sew a button on the left side of the fabric directly across from the chain 6 space that we created for a buttonhole. So I've got my button here and I'm just going to show you where to place it. We're just going to place it near the edge of the fabric directly across from that chain 6 space. Using your needle and thread, you'd sew your button on, and then once your ends are woven in and you place this on the doll, you would just then use the chain 6 space to slip over that button to secure it onto the back of your doll. And that is how you create your doll swim shorts. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please hit that like button and please consider subscribing to this channel. If you like free crochet patterns, please check out my blog, theloopylamb.com. If you have any questions or comments, I would love to hear from you. Please leave them in the comment section below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks so much for watching, friends. Happy hooking, and I'll see you next time.